Something massive is about to happen in the silver market. And the people who know about it are quietly preparing. The people who don't, they're going to wake up one day very soon and wonder why everything got harder, why their savings feel smaller, and why the window to protect themselves closed before they even knew it was open. If you are interested in money, finance, or changing your financial future, like this video and subscribe right now, because what you are about to learn can change the way you see money forever. Let me tell you about a man named Tariq. He worked a regular 9-to-5 job, brought home a decent salary, paid his rent, fed his family, and felt like he was doing okay. Not rich, not poor, just okay. He had some savings in his bank account, maybe 2 months' worth of expenses, and he told himself that was enough. "I'm not a gambler," he used to say. "I don't do stocks or gold or any of that stuff. I just trust the system." And for a long time, the system seemed to trust him back. Then one year, his grocery bill went up 30%. His electricity bill climbed. The rent landlord raised the price. His salary stayed the same. And slowly, without any single dramatic moment, Tariq's okay life started feeling not so okay anymore. He didn't lose a job. He didn't make any big mistakes. He just stayed still while everything around him moved. And that's the thing about financial shocks. They don't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes they arrive like a slow leak. And by the time you notice the damage, the floor is already soaked. What Tariq didn't know, what most people don't know, is that there was a warning. There are always warnings. And right now, in 2025, one of the biggest warnings in a generation is being sent out through something most people completely ignore. Silver. Not Bitcoin, not some tech stock, not real estate. Silver. The metal that's been used as money for over 4,000 years. And what's happening to it right now should make every regular person sit up and pay very close attention. Now, before you think this is just some investment pitch, stay with me. Because this isn't really about silver. It's about what silver is telling us about the world economy, about the purchasing power of the money in your wallet right now, and about a window of time that is closing faster than most people realize. I'll get to the exact timeline in a moment. But first, you need to understand why silver is so different from every other asset most people talk about. Most people think of silver as just a shiny metal you see in jewelry or old coins. Maybe your grandmother had a silver tea set. Maybe you've seen it mentioned in the news once or twice. But here's what almost nobody tells you in plain language. Silver is the only commodity in the world that is both a precious metal and an industrial metal at the same time. That double identity is what makes it unique. And right now, both of those identities are being pulled in the same direction, up, simultaneously. That almost never happens. And when it does, history shows it doesn't stay quiet for long. Let me explain the industrial side first, because this is the part that usually gets ignored. Silver isn't just for jewelry. It's inside your phone. It's inside your laptop. It's inside the solar panels going up on rooftops all over the world. It's inside electric vehicles. It's inside the satellites orbiting the planet right now. Silver is one of the best conductors of electricity on Earth, better than copper in many applications. And as the world races toward clean energy and digital technology, the demand for silver is not going up slowly. It's going up like a rocket. In fact, according to the Silver Institute, global silver demand hit record highs recently, driven almost entirely by industrial use. Solar panel manufacturing alone now consumes more silver than the entire jewelry industry. Think about that for a moment. One industry, more silver than all the rings, necklaces, and bracelets in the world combined. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part most financial news outlets breeze right past. While demand is hitting record levels, the silver supply is not keeping up. Mining silver is hard, expensive, and slow. You can't just open a new silver mine overnight. It takes years of exploration, planning, permitting, and construction before a single ounce of silver comes out of the ground. And right now, some of the world's biggest silver-producing regions are facing operational challenges, labor issues, declining ore quality, geopolitical instability. The gap between how much silver the world needs and how much is actually being produced is widening every single quarter. Analysts call this a supply deficit. You can call it a ticking clock, and nobody's really talking about this part, at least not in language that regular people can hear and understand. Now here's where the story of silver gets deeply personal. Because this isn't just about miners and factories, this is about you, about your savings, about whether the money you worked hard for this month will actually be worth the same amount in 2 years. Because here's the thing about silver and gold and other real assets. Throughout history, they have acted as a mirror. When paper money loses value, when governments print more currency, when inflation quietly eats away at what your paycheck can buy, real assets like silver tend to reflect that truth. They tend to hold their value or rise precisely when paper currency is falling. Think about it this way. Imagine you had $100 in 1970. If you kept that in cash, hidden under a mattress, that $100 today would buy you maybe $10 worth of what it bought back then. But if you had bought silver with that $100 in 1970, You would be sitting on something worth thousands of dollars today. The metal didn't magically grow. The dollar just shrank. And nobody told Tariq. Nobody told your parents. Nobody sat the average working person down and explained how money actually loses power over time and what you can do to protect yourself from it. But what happened next in silver's story changed everything. And this is what most people are missing right now. In the last few years, central banks around the world, the big institutions that control national currencies, have been doing something quietly dramatic. They've been buying gold and silver at a pace not seen since the 1960s. Not retail investors, not hedge funds, the actual governments and central banks of major nations. When the people who print the money start converting that money into metals, you have to ask yourself, what do they know that we don't? What are they preparing for? The answer, if you're honest about it, is uncomfortable. They are preparing for a world where trust in paper currency continues to erode, where debt levels, national debt, corporate debt, consumer debt, become so enormous that the only way out is to devalue the currency, to print more money and let inflation quietly steal purchasing power from ordinary people, while assets held by the wealthy stay protected. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is monetary history. It's what happened in Weimar Germany, in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela, in Argentina, which has gone through this cycle so many times that ordinary Argentine families have passed down the habit of converting savings into hard assets across generations, because they learned the hard way. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but we're not Argentina. This can't happen here. And look, you might be right that it won't reach those extremes, but you don't need hyperinflation for your savings to get hurt. You just need mild, persistent inflation, the kind we've already been living through, to run slightly faster than your salary grows, year after year for a decade. That's a slow-motion financial event that most people never label as a crisis, even as it quietly drains their ability to buy a home, save for retirement, or feel financially secure. And this is where most people fail without even realizing it. They're not making dramatic mistakes. They're just not moving. They're holding cash, trusting that the system will stay stable, and watching the gap between their savings and their dreams quietly widen. So what does the silver shock actually mean? And when is the date everyone is talking about? Let me take you back about 18 months. A group of commodities analysts and institutional investors started noticing something that hadn't happened in decades. The ratio between gold prices and silver prices, called the gold to silver ratio, had stretched to historically extreme levels. What that ratio means, in simple terms, is how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold. Historically, that ratio has averaged somewhere around 15 to 1, or 60 to 1 depending on the era, but recently it stretched to over 80 to 1, and at moments nearly 90 to 1. In plain English, that means silver became historically cheap compared to gold, historically undervalued, historically ignored. Every single time in modern history that this ratio has stretched this far, one of two things has happened. Either gold drops sharply to realign with silver, or silver rises sharply to realign with gold. And given everything we just talked about, the industrial demand explosion, the supply deficit, the central bank moves, most serious analysts are betting on option 2, silver rising sharply and not slowly. Now here's the open loop I need you to hold in your mind, because the timing of this matters more than almost anything else I'm going to tell you today. I'll explain exactly why in a few moments. Analysts who track commodities markets, not TV personalities, not social media influencers, but actual people who study supply-demand data for a living, have been pointing to a convergence point, a moment when several factors all align at once. Increased industrial consumption hitting its next peak, mining output failing to close the supply gap. Inflation pressures making paper savings feel more vulnerable. And a potential trigger event, whether that's a currency shock, a geopolitical disruption, a central bank announcement, or a shift in monetary policy, that causes a rapid revaluation of silver in global markets. Based on the data patterns they're tracking, many of these analysts believe that convergence window sits somewhere in 2025 and into early 2026. Not a guaranteed date like a train schedule, but a window, a zone of probability. And in that zone, the people who prepared early will look like geniuses. The people who waited will feel like Tariq, standing still while the floor shifted beneath them. But here's the uncomfortable truth, and I need you to really sit with this. The silver shock isn't just about a price going up on a screen. It's about what that price movement signals for everything else, for the cost of goods, for the purchasing power of wages, for the hidden wealth transfer that happens when real assets rise and cash savings shrink. When silver moves, it usually means the broader financial environment is shifting, and that shift affects normal people. Salary workers, students, young families trying to save, far more than it affects the wealthy, who already hold assets that protect them. The wealthy don't keep their savings in a bank account. I need you to understand that clearly. The richest families in the world hold their wealth in real estate, in equity, in businesses, in commodities. Their wealth is denominated in things, not in currency. So when currency weakens, their assets reprice upward in that currency, and they stay protected. Meanwhile, the person who worked hard all month, took home a paycheck and put it in a savings account, earning 2% interest while inflation runs at 5%, that person is actually going backward every single month, without ever feeling a single dramatic moment. This is the invisible tax that no politician will campaign on, and no news anchor will headline with. And silver, in a strange way, is one of the clearest signals we have that this tax is active and accelerating. Now let me tell you about someone who did it differently. Her name is Priya. She was a school teacher. Not rich, not connected, not someone who had any special financial education. But 5 years ago, a friend showed her something simple. She learned that throughout history, allocating even a small portion of savings, not all of it, just a small slice, into physical precious metals had helped ordinary people maintain their purchasing power across economic cycles. She didn't go all in. She didn't drain her retirement account. She simply started putting aside a small amount each month, buying silver, actual physical silver, coins, and small bars, the way her grandmother used to tuck away gold jewelry as a form of savings. She wasn't trying to get rich. She was trying to stay whole. And what happened over those 5 years? Her silver holdings didn't just match inflation, they significantly outpaced it. The money she had protected in metal was worth considerably more in purchasing power terms than the money she had left in her savings account. She didn't brag about it. She didn't become a finance influencer. She just quietly felt a little more secure, a little more in control, a little less afraid of what the next economic headline might mean for her family. I'll tell you what the most important part of Priya's story is in just a moment. But first, I want you to hold on to the emotion of that, the feeling of being just a little more protected, of not being fully at the mercy of forces you can't control. Because that feeling, that modest, quiet security, is available to far more people than most financial media would have you believe. And nobody talks about this part enough. The accessibility of silver as a tool for regular people. Gold gets all the press. Gold is the glamorous one. Gold is what kings stored in their vaults and what central banks hoard in their reserves. But gold is also expensive. As of 2025, a single ounce of gold costs well over $2,000. For a young person just starting out, or a family living month to month, that's a significant barrier. Silver, on the other hand, costs a fraction of that. You can buy a 1 ounce silver coin for somewhere between $25 and $35, depending on when you're reading this. You can buy silver in fractional amounts. You can start with whatever you have, $50, $100, and build from there over time. The entry point is not exclusive. It's designed for everyone, even if the financial industry has mostly marketed it toward wealthy collectors and institutional investors. And here's the thing, and this is a reality shock moment I want you to really absorb: the people who benefit most from you. Not knowing this are the same institutions whose business model depends on you keeping your money in cash, in savings accounts, and instruments that they control and profit from. I'm not saying there's a secret meeting room where bankers plot against average families. I'm saying the incentive structure does not favor telling ordinary people about tools that let them exit the system of slow wealth erosion. The system benefits when you stay inside it, confused, trusting, and uninformed. But what happened next in the global silver story is what makes 2025 feel genuinely different from any other year in recent memory. Multiple forces are converging simultaneously in a way they haven't before. The green energy transition is accelerating at a governmental policy level, meaning industrial silver demand isn't speculative. It's locked in by legislation and infrastructure contracts. Geopolitical tensions, particularly around key mining regions in Latin America and parts of Asia, are creating real supply chain uncertainty that even optimistic analysts can't dismiss. The US dollar, which has been the world's reserve currency since the end of World War II, is facing unprecedented pressure as countries, led by China, Russia, India, Brazil, and others, quietly accelerate their move toward alternative trade settlement mechanisms. Not to overthrow the dollar dramatically, but to reduce their dependence on it. And when dollar dominance weakens, assets priced in dollars, including silver, tend to reprice upward. Add to that the fact that retail investor awareness of silver is growing. Platforms that allow ordinary people to buy fractional precious metals have made the asset class genuinely accessible for the first time in history. And as more regular people start moving even small amounts of their savings into silver, the demand picture gets even tighter against an already strained supply. This is a pressure cooker, and pressure cookers don't stay at high pressure forever. At some point, the valve opens. Now, let me be very honest with you here, because I believe you deserve honesty more than hype. Nobody, not me, not the most sophisticated analyst on Wall Street, not the smartest AI system in existence, can tell you with certainty exactly when this pressure releases, or how dramatically it does. Markets don't work on schedules. Economic events don't arrive with polite notice. What history can tell us and this is not speculation, this is documented across centuries, is that when the conditions align the way they're aligning right now, the window for preparation is always shorter than it feels in the moment. People always think they have more time, and then they don't. The people who protected themselves before the 2008 financial crisis didn't do it because they had a crystal ball. They did it because they understood the structural vulnerabilities in the system and acted before the majority realized what was happening. By the time the crisis hit the evening news, the window was closed. The people who moved early held assets that preserved their wealth. The people who waited held paper that collapsed. That's not fear-mongering. That's just how financial history works. So what can a regular person actually do? Not a hedge fund manager, not someone with $10,000 sitting around. A regular person, a student, a factory worker, a nurse, a teacher, someone bringing home a modest income and trying to build a better future. The answer is almost embarrassingly simple, and that simplicity is actually the most important part of it. Start with awareness. The first step is exactly what you're doing right now. Learning. Understanding that inflation is not just a news word, but a real force that affects your actual life. Understanding that silver is not just a commodity for the wealthy, but a tool with deep historical roots in ordinary people's financial survival. Understanding that the money sitting in your savings account is not a neutral, safe choice. It is an active decision to hold a depreciating asset, and that decision should be made consciously, not by default. The second step is starting small. If you can set aside even 5%, just 5%, of what you save each month and convert it into physical silver, you're beginning to build a position outside the paper money system. You are diversifying in a way that the wealthiest families in the world have done for centuries, just scaled to your size. This isn't about getting rich from silver. It's about not getting poor from inflation. It's about holding something real that has maintained value across empires, wars, recessions, and revolutions. The third step is thinking differently about what safe actually means. Most people think of cash as the safe option and investing as the risky option. But is it actually safe to hold your savings in something that is designed to slowly lose purchasing power? Is it actually risky to hold a portion of your savings in a metal that has maintained value for 4,000 years? The definitions of safe and risky get much more complicated when you look at them honestly. And here is the part most people never reach in their financial education because they stop too soon, or because nobody around them knows to tell them. Wealth preservation and wealth creation are two different things. Most financial content, most YouTube videos, most investment advice focuses on wealth creation. How to make money, how to grow your savings, how to invest for returns, and that's valuable. But wealth preservation is what protects you when the system has a bad year. It's the floor beneath the floor. It's the reason that even in the worst economic downturns in history, the Great Depression, the stagflation of the 1970s, the financial crisis of 2008, there were ordinary people who came through okay, not because they were lucky, not because they were brilliant, but because they understood that holding some portion of their savings in real, tangible assets gave them a floor that paper money couldn't provide. Silver has been that floor for millennia, and in 2025, with everything converging the way it is, the industrial demand, the supply deficit, the currency pressures, the historical ratio extremes, the case for including silver in that floor has rarely been stronger. But what happened to Tariq? Remember him? The guy from the beginning of this story who trusted the system and felt okay until one day he didn't? The last time I want to bring him up, I want to give him a different ending. Because the real story isn't about Tariq being a victim. It's about the moment he learned. It's about the afternoon he sat down and realized that his sense of financial safety had been built on assumptions nobody had ever seriously challenged for him. That keeping money in the bank was not a financial strategy. It was a default. And defaults are comfortable until they aren't. The version of Tariq I want you to imagine is the one who watched a video like this one, who got a little uncomfortable, who sat with that discomfort instead of clicking away, and who then, not dramatically, not all at once, started making small, intentional changes, started learning, started allocating, started thinking about his financial future, not just in terms of how much money he earned, but in terms of how much of his real purchasing power he was actually protecting and growing over time. That version of Tariq isn't a financial genius. He's just awake. And being awake, being informed, being intentional, is the single biggest advantage any regular person can have in a financial world that is moving faster and shifting more dramatically than at almost any point in modern history. The silver shock is coming. Maybe not like a thunderclap. Maybe more like a tide. Slow, inevitable, transformative for those who saw it building and positioned themselves accordingly, and disorienting for those who had their backs turned. The question isn't really about silver. The question is about you. It's about whether the version of you watching this video today is the version who looks back in 2 or 3 years and says, I understood what was happening and I moved. Or the version who says, I knew something was coming, but I thought I had more time. Financial decisions are made in moments like this one, not in textbooks, not in boardrooms. In moments of clarity, when someone cuts through the noise and says, here's what's actually happening. Here's what you need to know. Here's what the people who are preparing are doing that the people who are not preparing are missing. You now know more than most people around you know, more than most people will ever take the time to learn. And knowledge without action is just entertainment. So think about what you're going to do differently. Think about the 5%. Think about what it means to hold something real in a world where paper promises are increasingly strained. Think about Priya, quietly building security while everyone else kept waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. The perfect moment is the one you're in right now. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial truths are coming next.